everyone, and welcome to Speak Up Sis podcast. This is the place where everyday women and men have an opportunity to share their stories to inspire yours. We say what you think no one wants to hear, but everyone needs to know. I'm your host, Angel Charmaine, and tonight, y'all, we're having a Blue Flame discussion, and I've invited a good friend of mine into the space to talk tonight about something that many of us don't want to talk about. It's definitely a hot topic, so we're definitely going to have a Blue Flame discussion. It's going to get hot up in here, but that's okay. You all can come on into the space. You can join the conversation, leave us some comments, ask your questions, engage with us tonight, because we're going to be talking about what lies behind the smile. And lately in our society, we've been seeing people die by suicide, and they've been people who are smiling, people that we see as, hold on a second. Y'all excuse me. I had my device on. He's talking while I'm talking. So we've been seeing in the media where we've got quite a bit of people dying by suicide. Our former, she was Miss USA, died by suicide. Of course, Regina King's son died by suicide. Tashura, my guest tonight, she's going to come on in just a second. She sent me a post about just the other day, and I believe it's Chicago, someone died by suicide in the mall, just filled with people. So one thing that we're noticing is that a lot of these people look happy. Their social media, they're smiling, they're beautiful, they look like they've got everything going for them, and the next thing you know, we hear they died by suicide. So we're going to have the tough conversation tonight, and we're going to talk about what lies behind the smile. So Tashura, I want to welcome you into the space. Sis, how you doing tonight?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, you are so welcome. And you are not new to the space. No. So for those of you who've been watching and listening Speak Up Sis podcast, you know Tashura Talks is her platform, and I'm going to give her an opportunity to talk about that a little later. But I invited her into the space because we had kind of a personal conversation, and you were kind of dealing with some things, and I said, you know what? No, I didn't say it. You said it. You was like, we need to talk about this. I think this would be something we need to talk about on Speak Up Sis. So that's what we're doing tonight. So you all feel free to join the conversation on YouTube. We're going to be looking at the comments and the questions, and you all can join us in this discussion tonight. And I'm just going to be honest and tell you that this conversation, Tashura, makes me a little nervous. I'm a little nervous talking about this this particular topic of depression, because so many people have so many different thoughts and ideas and feelings about it that you can get on some people's bad side, you know, if you don't say what they want you to say or whatever. So I typically stay away from these kind of conversations, but this needs to be discussed.
Yes,
and
it does.
Every podcast, every television show, every radio show, we need to begin to talk about depression. So let's talk.
All right.
So before I let you start, I want to give you all some statistics tonight, which I thought were interesting. All right. Depression affects an estimated 1 in 15 adults in any given year. That's a lot of people. 1 in 15.
I think it's higher than that. I think it's 1 in 5, really.
I'm telling you, this is wild. 1 in 6 people will experience depression at some time in their life. That's a lot of people. Depression can occur at any time, but on average, it first appears during the late teens to mid-20s. I thought that was interesting because I remember a while ago hearing the statistic about young Black men who go to college, and they say that oftentimes if they're going to present with some type of schizophrenia or bipolar, some type of mental health issue, it usually comes out when they get to college because of the stress that they're under in that space. And it hit me home because, I've got 3 college students that are boys. And so when I saw that, I thought, so I'm always making sure their mental is good. So that particular statistic really grabbed me. Women are more likely than men to experience depression, but that does not mean that men don't experience depression. The statistics simply say that women are more likely than men to experience depression. Some studies show that 1/3 of women will experience a major depressive episode in their lifetime. That's interesting.
It said one?
1/3. That 1/3 of women will experience a major depressive episode in their lifetime. And this one, I think people might find interesting, or maybe they won't, but I thought it was. There is a high degree of heritability running in the family, approximately at 40%, when first-degree relatives, which would be your parents, children, siblings, have depression.
Wow.
Yeah. I thought all of those were pretty interesting stats on depression. So let's talk about it. Have you ever been depressed?
Am I Black? When am I not? No, seriously. Yeah, it's been a constant in my life. Mm-hmm. It's a constant battle, daily. And as I was writing, I realized as of this year, I've been diagnosed as depressed, major depressive disorder, for 20 years. Mm-hmm. But it was discovered, and I was 28 then, but it was also discovered I had been depressed since I was a child.
Wow.
So I'm 47.5, and I can say my depression set in probably when I was 8 and I lost my dad. So almost 40 years of fighting this daily because it doesn't go away.
All right, so let's start here for those of us who may be a little clueless. When we talk about depression, so if a person is sad or maybe they're grieving, is that depression? So if I'm sad, can I call that being depressed?
I don't want to take away from someone that may be feeling sad. Mm-hmm. However, just being, let me word this correctly, a momentarily feeling of sadness is different than a lifelong feeling of sadness and hopelessness.
I think hopelessness is a very key word.
Yeah.
That feeling of there's nothing good to look forward to. I tell people all the time, hope is the expectation of good.
Right.
So when you get to a chronic place of hopelessness, you have no expectation that things are going to get better.
Exactly. And there you have depression.
There it is. So listen, we've got a few people in the building tonight. Let's go ahead and say hello to them because we want to make sure that everyone has an opportunity to tune in and chime in tonight. Ashley Bingham, how you doing? It's good to see you in the building. Gemma, how you doing? It's good to see you as well. Thank you for joining us tonight. Valerie, hey, I hope your belly is feeling better, sis. Valerie says this is a much needed convo. And hi, Chris. It's good to see you in the building as well. Okay, thank you. I appreciate that. All right, everybody. So let's jump back into this, and I want to say tonight we're going to spend a lot of time allowing Tashura to share, because when she contacted me, it was you were having a moment.
I contacted you twice.
You did. You
The
did.
second time I was on a nervous breakdown.
Yes, I said a moment. I'm being nice about it.
I broke down. I don't think nobody has heard me cry except for Angel, so she realized I do produce tears.
Yes, yes, and I said, okay, I'm gonna give you the platform. You can have Speak Up Sis to share what needs to be shared, because one of the things that you talked about was when was it Regina King's son, or what? It was Regina King's son, or was it the former Miss USA? It was one of the two. You saw a comment where
No, it was a girl I knew.
Okay.
There are 2 suicides that are left out.
Okay.
You commented about 3 of them. So one day I woke up. And I woke up to 2 suicides. One of them was somebody I knew that I was in a bike club with.
That's right.
And the second one was was a Facebook friend whose daughter's boyfriend of 6 years committed suicide, and he was in his 20s.
Right.
And so some of the comments that was made when speaking of the female that I knew was, that's so selfish. You know, why would she do that? She had a daughter. Why she just didn't go talk to somebody and get help? You know, and people were saying things under Regina King's son stuff like, you know, what would possess him to do something like that? I've heard comments like they should just get help. You know, people make the most insensitive comments, and they don't understand the headspace that you are in to take your own life. And I'm like, I can understand that headspace because I've been there, you know?
Right.
So, yeah, I mean, people, it's just so, to me, just so insensitive. And I found myself enraged. Like when I contacted you the first time, I'm like, I'm sick of these people with these insensitive comments and blah, blah, blah. We need to talk about this because they need to hear what I got to say.
And now she has the opportunity to tell every single person who's listening and who will watch and or listen exactly what she has to say. So let's address that, because tonight's topic is behind the smile. And when we were trying to think of the title for tonight, my first one was going to be Pretty and Depressed.
Right.
And I said, and I thought about that one because of much of what was said about the former Miss USA. It's like, everybody kept saying, she's so pretty. Like, she's beautiful, and she's a lawyer, and she's this, and she's that. And I just can't even understand. And I thought, what does being pretty have to do with being depressed or having any type of mental health situation? Pretty has nothing to do with it. So let's address that, this issue of you're so pretty. Why would someone so beautiful do this?
Pretty can lead to depression. You never know what happened to that pretty person that was once a pretty child throughout their lifetime. They could have been molested. They could have been treated differently based on their looks, told that, oh, you think you better than everybody, so I'm going to mistreat you on purpose. I'm going to show you ain't nothing. You don't know what type of emotional abuse, physical abuse. You just don't know.
Right.
So being pretty doesn't prevent you from being depressed. Just like being ugly won't prevent you from being depressed, because there's some ugly, depressed people out here.
Right.
So,
and there are some people's depression, based on the research that I've done, it's a chemical imbalance for many people. It's not even something traumatic that has happened to them, but it's literally an illness that they just can't control. And that has nothing to do with how attractive a person is. And I think that's something that needs to be said. I'm going to say it on this platform. pretty has nothing to do with depression. And it is insensitive and it's silly to make that type of comment. Now, the comment that really got at you was the selfish comment. Oh, you were like, I just don't know why they keep saying it. So let's sit with that one for a minute. Why does it bother you so much? Because when you think about it, okay, so let's look at it from the perspective that people are using it in, right? If you're a mom and you've got children, and small children who still depend on you, and you die by suicide, you leave the children behind, with some of them may have someone to look after them, some don't. They may end up in the system, right? So on some level, it makes sense that people would say that this is selfish. So why does it get at you so severely?
So, December of 2002, I had postpartum. I was in denial, and something happened with my husband at the time, and I had an episode. It's my first episode, and I found myself outside in the wintertime with no shoes on, no coat, walking the streets. And when I got back in the house, I remember taking pills. Mind you, I have a newborn. She's 2 months.
Is this before you got your diagnosis?
This is how I was diagnosed.
This is how, got you.
So I took some pills and I laid down. So I had small children.
So in that moment, I'm going to slow this down for a minute. In that space, were you thinking of the, like,
no?
Can you tell us what your mind, what pain?
I wanted the pain that I was going through to stop. I just found out my ex-husband was cheating on me, and this is the umpteenth time,
right?
Because I went through it through pregnancy, and then to find this out, and it was the person that it occurred with that was trying to be my friend. I mean, it was a crazy, deep situation, and I'm like, this is not how marriage is supposed to be. I'm supposed to be happy. I'm miserable, and it's like I just couldn't cope, and I just wanted the pain to go away. I felt that this was it.
Right.
Because I had never felt anything like that in my life. So the people that I was talking to couldn't tell me how to get through it, and that it was going to get better.
Right.
I kept getting a stand by your husband, read your Bible. So that was like the icing on the cake for me. And I was just like, done. I was over it. And I laid down and I didn't want to get back up. But I got back up. My baby's crying eventually got me back up.
Now, I probably have shared this in a space or two, but it's something about, and I think this for mothers, I think is that hard thing to grasp when they've never experienced a low this low. It's, what about the babies? And when you just said that, it made me think about myself. I remember being in a space of, I used to say to myself, how people just have a nervous breakdown. Back in the day, we go, she had a nervous breakdown. And I would think, how do you just have a nervous breakdown? That doesn't even make sense. Until I found myself laying in my bed, talking myself, and I say talking myself because it's in your head, talking myself into, I'm saying, you don't have to get up today. Just stay here. Just lay here. Kevin will take care of the kids. They'll get a substitute teacher. Everything will just keep going. just lay here and don't get up. Just lay here and don't get up. Literally, just like talking myself into a comatose state almost, right? Until I heard the babies. And I think that's the thing that grabs me is when you get so low as a mother that your baby's voices don't grab you. That's low. Because hearing those little children come around the corner going, Mommy, we hungry, we hungry, we hungry. There's another voice that was saying, get up and feed them. Get up and feed them.
That's just saving grace right there. But if your children aren't around you, if there's nobody around you and you're in that headspace and you take those pills or you pull the trigger to that gun or you jump off that building or you drive your car to the expressway. You know?
Or you're just so low that the voices don't pull you back.
Right.
It's possible. I think tonight, I really want people to understand this is real.
Right.
And it's possible. And it's not just possible. It's happening on a very large scale right now in our world.
Yeah, because there are stories that we don't hear about that
That's
don't
right.
make social media.
That's
they don't
right.
make the newspaper. They don't make the news.
That's right.
It's happening on a daily basis.
Yeah.
This is not a once a week. It's I forgot the statistics for how many minutes, hours, a person commits suicide every day in America for, I forgot what that statistic was, but it was a high statistic. So, I mean,
It's real.
yeah, it's no just get over it. That's another comment that makes me mad. Just get over it. Like, seriously? Okay.
So prior to this episode taking place, what were you like every day when people saw you? When they saw you with your family, when they saw you at church, when they saw, like, what did they see? Did they see happy to? Did they see she's strong and sturdy? What did people see when you went out every day?
They saw the unsaved, because this is the saved version of me. I know Jesus for real, y'all. Don't get it twisted. But the person I was back then in my 20s, the one that would cuss you out in 0.5 seconds.
Right.
My sister-in-law called me bipolar.
Mm.
Because what she saw was my reactions to what her brother would do on the low.
Gotcha.
So when people saw me, they thought I had the perfect family. You got the husband with the good job. Y'all got the house. Y'all got this. You ain't wanting for nothing. You this, you that. And so they saw a mask. I was miserable. I have journals from when I was married that I go back and read, and it sounds like somebody else's story.
Wow.
Because I could not believe that was me. Like, girl, you put up with what? He'd woke up there messing with me. Are you kidding me? So they didn't see me. They saw me trying to be the good wife and mother.
Right.
But I was drowning and I was losing myself. And when I looked at pictures, I remember showing somebody some pictures from when I was married, and they said, you just look so depressed. People on the outside that wasn't in that circle could see it, but the people around me couldn't see it.
Now, that is an interesting concept, because a lot of times when we see people who may attempt suicide or even die by suicide, or even if it's not suicide, if it's some other type of mental illness, right? People closest to them will say, I never knew. Right. I didn't see anything. They looked but listening to you just then, that sparked something in me, and it makes me wonder if the people who are closest to us are actually really paying attention.
They're not.
And this is a hard one. This is a hard pill to swallow for a lot of people, especially those who have experienced loved ones who have, died by suicide, to think that maybe I missed something. And the truth is sometimes you don't see. Sometimes you don't know. But I think based on what you just said, to know that there are people who didn't know you who can say, you looked depressed. Like, it's clear. Look at you. Versus the people who are closest to you who are like, I couldn't even tell. Why do you think that was so in your case. And let me put this disclaimer out there. We are not therapists.
Not at all.
We are not doctors. We are not counselors. We are not therapists. This is Speak Up Sis podcast. This is the Blue Flame discussion where we talk hot topics. And Tashura and I are sharing our thoughts, our opinions on what we think lies behind the smile and what we think about depression. This is us choosing to have a very candid conversation about depression. Okay, so nothing we are saying is to treat any illnesses or tell you what you need to do or anything of that nature. Okay, these are our opinions, our thoughts, and our life situations. All right, so go ahead. Why do you think they didn't see it?
It could be they didn't want to see it because they don't know how to help.
That's a good one. Ugh.
Or they just brush it off as, oh, she'll be all right tomorrow. She'll get over it. She just going through a little something. Yeah, 40 years of going through something, you know. So, I mean, even with children, because like I said, when I got diagnosed at 28, they said I had been depressed all my life. So even as a child with behavioral issues.
But we're talking about behind the smile. But what about behind the fist?
Oh, girl.
Behind the scowl, right? Behind the behavioral issues.
Behind the promiscuity.
Behind the promiscuity.
Yeah. They don't look at there's a deeper issue. They just look at what they see on the surface. When we need help for that deeper issue, you know, the stuff that we have to be silent about.
Right.
You know, what happens in this house stays
Stay
in this house. We ain't going to talk about your uncle that molested you. But I'm going to still let him live in the house. And you got to see him every day. So how am I going to deal with that?
Yeah.
What mental mind state am I in that my bedroom is across the hallway from this man that molested me, and he's still allowed to be in this household?
Right.
Or your boyfriend's still allowed to come over and spend the night. So, I mean, it's a lot to it. It's a lot to it, and we have baggage that no one has helped us unpack.
Right.
Because even in my 40s, you know, you meet people and you share your story with them. There are people that don't want to get to know that side of me.
Yeah.
They only want the happy, joke-cracking side of me. And it's like when I share with them my pain, like what triggered me the other day, me sharing about my children.
Right.
I feel that some people can't handle that.
Right.
You know, they like, no, I don't want to handle that part of you. I just want this part of you.
Right.
I don't want to deal with that. But this is me. This is a complete package.
Right. And for some, it makes you crawl back into a hole, into a shell, and put that back over there. And so now you're still not dealing with it. You're still not able to be authentically who you are and express what's really going on with you when people don't know how to deal, so they choose not to.
Yeah.
I can dig it. So let's go back to this moment when you have this huge episode. Your children are in the house. You're taking some pills. You hear your children. So how do you get from the house into some type of care?
The next day, I called my OB-GYN and told her I need to come see her. I told her what happened, and she said, okay, I'm sending you to the psychiatrist. Go to the psychiatrist. He asked me to do all these questionnaires and all that. And I had to take, I think it was Zoloft or something. So through all of that, he told me, yes, you have postpartum depression, but your depression goes deeper than that. You have major depressive disorder. You have been depressed since you was a child. And you also have bipolar. I think he diagnosed me as being bipolar.
Okay. I have to ask, how did they come up with all of these diagnoses from that episode? Were you in treatment for a while? Were you in the hospital for a while? Like, How did they come up with all of this?
It wasn't just the one episode. On these questionnaires, they ask you to account different situations in your life.
Gotcha.
Just like when I had another episode in 2016 and I was in Gwinnett Hospital on suicide watch. They ask you questions.
Okay.
And that's how I found out about manic episodes. I never knew what manic episodes was. And I would be up for 3 days, can't sleep. That's a manic episode. And I'm like, wow, I just thought, I just got insomnia and can't sleep.
Right.
They like, no. It's like a episode that you have. And I get them every now and then.
Right. And from the research I've done, it presents differently in different people. And here again, I'm not a doctor, so I don't know all the different types, but I do know even if you are suffering from some type of depression, it looks different in different people, right? So we talked about this. I want to sit here for a minute on this part of the story because I really believe many people, and I can't talk about people who are not in the Black community. I feel very confident talking about the Black community because I'm Black. But I think a lot of us here, now we're hearing you can have Jesus and therapy. You can have Jesus and therapy, right? And go to therapy, go to therapy, go to therapy. Dare I venture out there to say that many of us are afraid of therapy? I can be honest and say I know that I'm not a big fan. I tell people all the time, if you need therapy, go to therapy, get help. But Angel doesn't really want to fool up with therapy. And I can be so honest about this. And there is, and I'm sure it's upbringing and things you've heard and things you've seen and all those, I'm saying you, but me, but people who are afraid of therapy because no one wants to be labeled as crazy. Okay. Can I just be honest here? We don't like to use that word, but come on, that it's a word that's widely used. It's not CP, but it's used. No one wants to be deemed as crazy. And there's a fear of doctors. I'm not even going to front. I don't like going to the regular doctor. Okay. So because it's like they have a control. If that therapist or psychologist or psychiatrist or whomever you're talking to deems, if they say that something you say to them or whatever warrants something more aggressive, they have the authority to do that.
Yes, ma'am.
So I think a lot of people stray away from therapy because they don't want to find themselves in a situation where they no longer have control over their lives and someone else, and now they find themselves institutionalized or something of that nature. So when you say that you were in this position and now they diagnosed you with these things, did you feel some type of way? At some point, did someone say, well, maybe she needs to be hospitalized or institutionalized? Or did you ever feel that way? Or was that never a thought or an issue for you?
So when that happened, no, it wasn't a thought or an issue. However, in 2016, when I wasn't feeling right, I was on the edge and I could feel myself having those suicidal thoughts. And I went to the hospital to try to get help. Biggest mistake in the world. I'll never do that again. Because what ended up happening, oh, my boy, he know this story because I was texting him. I was sneaking. Okay, so what ended up happening was they took everything from me, but they were real cool about it. So I'm thinking, so they took my purse, they took my cell phone, they had me put on a hospital gown, and all of that. And I'm in this room. I can't have my cell phone. I can't have anything. And they have somebody sitting outside the door and they left the door open. And that's how it was for 2-3 days.
Wow.
And so I was like, can I call somebody? Oh, just wait. The doctor got to come back. So then a doctor comes and starts asking me questions. And he was a doctor that is not of our skin color. And so according to this doctor, I needed to go across the street.
And what's across the street?
That place with them padded walls.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, according to this doctor, I need to go on and, be committed.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, yo, whoa, hold your horses.
Mm-hmm.
But what I noticed is you cannot nut up and get aggressive. Because the guy next door to me, they did the same thing to him. And he got real aggressive.
Mm-hmm.
And next thing you know, he got an injection and was out for 2 days and ended up across the street.
See?
But, hold on, I'm about
you.
to tell you. So it was another doctor that came in
Mm-hmm.
that was of another ethnicity.
Mm-hmm.
And
But a
that's-
person of color.
Yeah, person of color.
Okay.
And that's when my minor in psychology kicked in.
Mm-hmm.
And I had to start using them technical terms and explaining what I'm going through at this time
Right.
in my life and the situation that I'm in and just everything that was going on. And she, because the other one was a male,
Mm-hmm.
she understood
Mm-hmm.
and said, you're just going through something right now. Okay, you've struggled with this all your life.
Uh-huh.
You just need help. And if you agree to get outpatient therapy
Uh-huh.
and treatment, I will let you go. Because I told her, hey, I'm leaving in 2 weeks to go become a truck driver.
Right.
So my situation is about to change.
Mm-hmm.
And so she agreed, and I agreed to outpatient therapy. It's not the therapist that can get you locked up. It's those doctors. It's the psychiatrist. That's the one that prescribes the medication. The therapist tries to talk you through and navigate you through.
Gotcha.
But that psychiatrist, let him say something ain't right. You're going to be across the street getting doped up.
Now, this brings me to another place that I want to put a pin in this, and if you all are watching and you want to chime in, I see we've got a little bit of talk. I'll take a look at this in just a second, but I want to say this so I don't forget. This is a place where I think it's really important to talk about representation in this field. Having people who are psychiatrists, psychologists, because they're different,
Right.
and therapists and counselors who are of different nationalities, different races, right? Different backgrounds. It's important because just like you said, if you find yourself in a situation with a doctor who's just like, oh, I'm just ticking some boxes and she ticks these boxes, I'm just going to put over here, and he has no understanding of your culture, background, none of those, and doesn't care.
Right.
Let me say that
No
too. And just
compassion,
doesn't
no
care,
empathy.
no compassion. You could find yourself in these type of situations, and educating the public. Like I said, I do believe a lot of people don't get therapy because they're afraid. I mean, people can say, oh, that's not true. It is true. I'm telling you it's true. It's true for me. You know what I'm saying? And so representation matters. It matters. And I believe that we really need to see more people of diverse backgrounds in that profession, and educating people. Don't just come out, oh, you can have therapy and Jesus, and it's a catchphrase and it's a meme. People need to be educated on what happens when you see a therapist. Just like you just said, you just educated me. Like, it's the psychiatrist who locks you up. It's the therapist that does this. People need to know the difference between the psychiatrist, the psychologist, the therapist, the counselor. People need to know what these people are capable of doing, what they're not able to do, what your rights are.
Right.
All of that, all of those things are important when you start sending people into this, into this mental health arena. Just like when we talk about, police and police brutality and how you move with the police. I need to know how to move with a psychiatrist.
You just said something, your rights. Because remember, I told you, they took away my cell phone. I had no way of communicating with nobody. So what I would say is, oh, excuse me, I need to get something out of my purse. So they would give me my purse. And I'd be texting my homeboy E like, hey, Ninja, they got me up in this place. They ain't trying to let me out, man.
Right.
This is where I'm at.
Right.
Like, I don't know what's going on. They won't let me use a phone.
And I don't know what my rights
They'll catch me
are.
on my phone, and they'll take my purse and take my phone.
It's important.
So I could still be there right now with nobody know where I'm at, and I'd be bumping my head against the wall, drooling on myself because they're keeping me doped up.
These are the conversations that have to be had, people. There are so many people that are pretending. You got people who are smiling all day. They're depressed all night and all day. You just can't see it. Or they've got anxiety, right? They've got all sorts of other situations they're dealing with. People are having, manic episodes. They're bipolar. They're having depressed episodes. They're having manic. They don't know what's going on. They're afraid to go. They don't know what to do. They're not educated on what to do. And so they walk around.
Self-medicating.
And we will talk about that as well. But they walk around smiling and looking happy and going to work and, taking care of children and loving on husbands and wives, and nobody knows that they are tormented inside. So let's go to the chat. And let's see, Valerie is talking to us tonight. She says, you show people what they want to see, but what's actually happening, what's actually happening. She says the old saying that keep your business in house, not to air your dirty laundry to everybody. That is definitely that old saying that I think has got a lot of people messed up. What goes on in this house, stay in this house. Don't air out your dirty laundry, right? Some of us need to listen, take them rugs outside and beat them.
Right.
You hear what I'm saying?
But anyway.
She says no one helps to unpack the heavy baggage. Yes, you can have Jesus and therapy.
Let me talk about that right quick.
Go ahead.
That's a new one, Jesus and therapy, because back in the day, they just tell you all you need is Jesus. You don't need no therapy. You don't need the medications. All you need is Jesus. Go to the altar and pray about it.
Right.
So you go to the altar, you're laying there, you're rolling around, you're speaking in tongues, you ran around the church 12 times, turned your jeans inside around, turned in a circle, pat your foot. You get up off the altar, you go home, guess what's still there?
Depression.
Exactly. Like, hey, you back? You done did all that snotting and crying, but I'm still right here. So come on and have a seat and talk to me. So I agree with the whole Jesus and therapy thing. However, for me, therapy does not work. But anyway,
That's a whole other show.
Like this. My therapy sessions,
like this here.
My therapists be rolling. They be in there laughing. Yeah, I helped one start a business, so it's like.
Do you think comedy and humor is a way that you cope? Is it a coping mechanism for you?
That is, I wrote that down. That is how I cope. I remember Tyler Perry said you had to laugh to keep from crying. And see, I used to cry all the time. And I noticed when I cried, I couldn't get up. I would lay in the bed for days. For days. I think in 2017, when I lost parental rights to my daughter, I stayed in the bed for 2 weeks. I didn't want to get up. And I cried. And it was at that point where I said, something got to change.
Yeah.
Something got to change. After being diagnosed with cancer and a heart condition, something got to change.
Something got to change.
I laugh about the most craziest things.
She does.
But I actually think it started in 2012 when I lost my grandmother, because I felt my mind going. I felt it, because that was the one thing I always said, I don't know how I'm going to deal with it. And I was dealing with a lot. And then I turned around and lost my grandmother. So I hit my friend up that's a comedian and said, I lost my grandmama. This was my mama. What am I going to do? And he had lost both his parents. He said, do you want the funny or do you want something else? I said, give me the funny. He started cracking jokes about my grandmama. Talking about, I know Social Security going to be happy because they can finally start paying her. She 125. What you going to put in the obituary? The picture when her and Moses went on prom? And I laughed. And I made it through.
Right.
So laughter is what gets me through.
Right. Before we wrap up, because you all know we get one solid hour in this space, and we always just touch the surface of these conversations. They are not designed to fix all of your problems. Blue Flame discussions are designed to speak up about some things that we don't typically talk about. They are designed to spark conversations, hence Blue Flame. But there is something that I want to address in this space at this time, and that is this idea that everybody has access to therapy. And I believe not only are there people walking around with these smiles, covering up things, not wanting to go because they're afraid, but also there are people who cannot afford therapy. This one gets me because we talk about, the other persuasion and privilege. But there are all types of privilege that I don't think people really pay attention to. Not everyone has a job.
Right.
Not everyone has a job that has, what is it, EPA?
EAP.
EAP?
Yeah, Employee Assistance Program.
Right. Not everyone has a job that has a program where they can just go. Right. Not everyone has the money to be able to afford. Right. And a lot of the free spaces, you find yourself in places where they want to medicate, or you find yourself, lower income people find themselves in situations where you're going to take this medication. If you don't take this medication, you can't get this, help. This help or whatever. So I think that is also a conversation that needs to be had as well. The understanding that, not only that, a good friend of mine said to me as well, she said, Angel, I could afford therapy and I was in therapy, but she said, what people don't realize is that when you leave, you have to do the work. She said, I wasn't even in the headspace. Like, I didn't have the capacity to do the work that is required when you're in therapy. So what do you think are some alternative? Because you said you're not really big on therapy. So what are some ways that you work through your symptoms without the therapy? What are some things that you do?
Okay, so first let me talk about therapy. Therapy, when you do get it for free, it may be 1-2 sessions. Therapy is not just a 6-week program. How would you unpack 47.5 years of trauma in 6 weeks? Therapy, you can end up going to, I know somebody, they've been going to a therapist for years. Who got it like that? You can get medication longer than you can get good therapy.
Now that's a whole discussion by itself. That's a whole discussion by itself. I'll give you medication for a lifetime, but I'm gonna give you therapy for 3 weeks.
You got to pay for that after that. But this medication I give you for free for the rest of your life, however long you need to take it. That's why I don't take medication.
That's a whole other conversation.
The medication make you worse than just dealing with it, in my opinion.
So how do you deal?
So what was pointed out to me is that my therapy has been through my art and my writing. I've been writing since I was a kid. I used to leave notes. I used to leave suicidal notes. But then I started going deeper in writing my feelings. I started writing poetry, started rapping. Y'all don't need to know about that.
You was doing a little Issa Rae in the mirror.
I got a song on YouTube. We ain't even gonna talk about that.
I got
a single that was released in 90 or 91 on YouTube when I was 16. Yes, I was gonna be a rapper.
Y'all, I'm gonna try to get that YouTube. I'm gonna try to get that link from her.
It's still on there. I'll send it to you. But like even now, affirmations, writing, painting, creating. That's my out.
Right.
And if I have to cry, I give myself 5 minutes. I cannot cry. If I cry longer than 5 minutes, I'm going to go into a deep depression. So with anything I'm going through, I tell myself, yo, you got 5 hot minutes.
You set a timer?
I don't set a timer. I look at the clock. You got 5 minutes. So whatever you about to do, you better do it. Because after that 5 minutes, pick yourself up. We got stuff to do.
Yeah.
We got stuff to do. So that's how I deal.
You know, Speak Up Sis is rooted in this idea. It's at the core of my own personal philosophy that authentic conversations, help to build resiliency in people. I really believe that the lost art of having real conversations has helped people to be less resilient. When you know that you have a space where you can actually be yourself, you can talk, you can share, you can say the things that make people clutch their pearls. You can say whatever you're thinking and feeling, knowing that you won't be judged. Right? Knowing that people will allow you to just say what you need to say so that you can get it off your chest, and also having some wise counsel in some spaces, knowing that should you need advice or suggestions or feedback, that there are people in the space who will sit and talk to you and have those real, raw conversations. To me, I believe that helps to build that what Lisa Nichols calls a resiliency muscle. And it helps you to be able to, deal with some of the hard stuff of life when you're able to talk it through. And that is actually what Speak Up Sis was born out of. It was born out of my own need for conversation and connection. After the decisions that I had made to step out on the water and everything that started to happen, after that, I needed to be able to talk. I needed other women who could understand, who could connect, who could relate. And so I created for other people what I needed for myself, and was able to glean out of the community as well. I really think that these spaces, the more of them that are coming up, spaces like Chrysalis, for those of you who don't know about Chrysalis, it is the exclusive women's only community that is connected to Speak Up Sis, where we are just a full-on community for women. More communities like these are needed. They're needed. Are we therapists? No.
Not at all.
Not at all. However, it does the soul good when you can sit next to another woman who can say, I've been there.
Yes.
I know what that feels like, sis. I know what it feels like to, to hear your baby cry and just leave them there. I know what that feels like. I know what postpartum depression feels like. I know what, depression feels. I know what it feels like to be so anxious and not want your husband to leave the house and not want it. I know what that feels like, and to be able to talk it out. These types of communities are important and they are necessary. Yes, they are. I mean, that's my thought about it anyway. I mean, somebody could say I'm wrong, but hey. So for me, just like you, writing is definitely a way that I cope. And of course, talking. I'm a talker. It just is what it is. And if I have someone who's willing to listen, then I will talk, And so I created spaces and put myself in a position and other women in positions to be there when a woman needs to talk. So tonight, y'all, I know we just scratched the surface. Tashura, you got anything else you want to get off your chest tonight?
Well, I appreciate you for having me. And I just want to say, for anybody that's watching that has that struggles with depression, you have those thoughts, you think it's not going to get better, don't give up. Just live to see tomorrow. Because what I've learned is you never know what the day is going to bring. Mm-hmm. You never know. That one day you decide to give up might be the day that your breakthrough was supposed to happen. So that's what keeps me going.
That's what's up. I'm going to tell you, I've never been diagnosed with any type of, but I ain't never been diagnosed.
I can tell you, girl. Let me.
But I will say this, that you just got to open your mouth and say something to somebody. People do care. People care. And let me tell you something. There are folks who don't know you, who love you. There are people in this world who have never met you. They may never meet you, but they care about you and they love you. And if you would just open your mouth and say something. I had a friend when I was in Portland who was actually a psychologist, and she had bipolar. She has bipolar disorder, and she's a psychologist, right? But couldn't tell anybody because she's a psychologist. And I remember her coming and talking to me sometimes, and she would be like, she'd be in a depressed place. She'd be so down that she couldn't, because I would say, you could have called. And she's like, you can't even pick the phone up.
No, and you can't voice what's wrong. It's like a little kid when they cry, what's wrong? And they can't tell you. I can't tell you what's wrong. You might start asking me questions that I can't answer. What I need you to be is just be. Just be present.
What I told her, because she lived alone, I said, put my number on speed dial, where you just got a number you press. Because she said she knew when she was in the space, but it's like it's difficult to maneuver in the space, though.
You're paralyzed. I
told her, if you can just keep your phone near you, and when you if you just hit the number, when my phone rings and you're not saying anything, I'll know. I will come over. You understand what I'm saying? Let me tell y'all, there are people in this world, and this is a woman of the other persuasion, right? And we got nothing in common, personally, our backgrounds. But I love you so much. If you just hit the button, you ain't got to say nothing. I'll know that means I need you to come over here right now. There are people who are willing to do that for you, but you got to be willing to open up your mouth and say, I need help. When you're in a good space.
That's a hard one. We got to do a part 2.
Got to do a part 2.
That's a hard one.
Before we leave, I would like to leave you all with the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline number. If you find yourself in a suicidal crisis or even in emotional distress, right? You can call 1-800-273-8255. That is 1-800-273-8255. And I invite all of you women who are looking for a community, if you're looking for a safe and protective place where you can connect with women who will just love on you, whether it is about your personal life, your professional life, just you. If you just want to be in a space, I welcome you to join Chrysalis. You can visit speakupsis.com and check us out there. I'm telling you, these women will love on you and support you in whatever way they can. If you are watching on YouTube, please subscribe and stick it out with us. We would love to have you as a part of the Speak Up Sis podcast family. You can find us on Instagram and Facebook at Speak Up Sis Podcast. We're here every Monday night at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Tashura, I want to say thank you so much for coming into this space and sharing your story with us. I hope this has helped, even just a little bit.
It has.
Let the people know how they can connect with you.
At Tashura Talks on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. That is at TALKS. Tashura Talks.
And you all look out, because Tashura got some ish to say.
I'm gonna talk my ish.
And she gonna be talking. So y'all follow her and keep up with her. We love you all, and we'll see you next week on Speak Up Sis podcast. Y'all have a good night.